Hello and welcome to another edition of Hughes of the World. This is episode 19. We've finally made it to B for Benin. Rhymes with 19. That's quite nice. It's not Benin. For years I called it Benin. Even when I was there, I think I called it Benin. But apparently it's Benin City and it was the Kingdom of Benin, if I'm getting this right. But the actual country is called Benin. Okay, so yes, we've got Chubai on the chat saying Benin where? Inconsequential saying is Benin. Oh, we've had that one already. Here's appearing in episode 19, I think. Me saying Restream just crashed. Obviously, sorry to slander Restream there. It was actually my OBS software that crashed. So I had to reload it. Ben Doon and Phil McRevis says Pooslinger. I blame the EU, says Inconsequential. Is this the real one? The real stream? Is Ben in here? Ben is in somewhere. But I just realised that the old chat. I'm going to bring up the new chat so I know who's actually sending me messages of love and support. Right, so there we go, and I'm appearing, and that's really weird because it's what I was doing a few seconds ago. Right, okay, there's me pop-out chat. Brilliant. I can see what you're saying now, which is lovely. Betty Biscuit says ding dong. Alex Morgan says good evening everyone. Sorry I haven't been on the daytime streams lately. Back to work for me. Oh, I see. Sorry man. Playtime's over. Lockdown is over. Glasgow Kid says I once knew a Janine from Benin. She wasn't the queen. Very good. Ahoy. Apparently there was an 8-year-old girl who fished a sword out of the lake in which Excalibur was supposed to... King Arthur was supposed to have thrown a sword in the lake, and it was retrieved by an 8-year-old girl who is now officially the Queen of England, which is cool. Good evening, says Phil Spicer. Inconsequential says, look, I'm sure I've been here before. I haven't done Benin before. This is new. This is a new one. It's coming out now to you live. We've got Aidan saying hi world, Duke Venue saying evening governor, Nick saying this is way past my bedtime. You think you've got problems, Nick? This is past my bedtime and I've got to stay awake for the next hour and tell you about the wonderful West African country of Benin, which I quite like. I've got to say, cards on the table, quite like Benin. Don't have a problem with Benin. I think Benin's quite a cool place to hang out, to know and love, as they say. So I'm going to kick this off with having a look. So yeah, that's brilliant. So I will just take that down. Okay. So hello and welcome to Hughes of the World. Today we're talking about the West African country of Benin, which used to be called Dahomey until 1975. The modern name, comes from the actual bite of Benin, which we'll go into when we look at the map. But Benin City and the Kingdom of Benin, or Benin, is actually in what is now Nigeria, and you may have heard of the Benin bronzes. Now, these bronzes are these amazing bronze and brass reliefs that have these incredibly carved figures on them of dignitaries and kings and even visiting traders from Portugal back in the day, from the height of the Kingdom of Benin, which, like I say, is now in Nigeria. And you wouldn't believe where these bronzes are now kept. They're kept with the Elgin marbles, or rather the Parthenon marbles. Yes, they're in the British Museum. Would you like to know how the British Museum got hold of them? Well, we retrieved them from a burning palace. How good is that? We retrieved them from a burning palace. It was us that set fire to the palace. Okay, that's not so good. So basically, Britain looted, pillaged, raped its way around the world, and one of its many bounties that it got from this trip around the world of just stealing other people's stuff was the Benin bronzes, which are now at the London Museum. If you want to go and watch them, see them, go and visit them. But that's different. That's a different place. different country. I'll cover that one in more detail maybe when we talk about Nigeria. Anyway, so Dahomey was a French colony. So the main language there is French. It became independent on August the 1st, 1960, and its main export is cotton. And one remarkable thing that I remember from being in Benin is that it's really hard to get petrol. Like, fuel is really expensive, strangely expensive in Benin, and a lot of people jump over the border into Nigeria to get some cheap fuel and then bring it back into Benin, which is something that I saw them do in northwest Brazil. People would leave Boa Vista in the very northwest of Brazil and go across the border into Venezuela and fill up their car with cheap Venezuela fuel. At the time, fuel was so cheap in Venezuela, it cost about, I don't know, 5 pence to fill your tank. And when I say tank, I mean like a Sherman tank. Yeah, full of fuel. No people inside, just fill it full of fuel. It was basically free. And yeah, so people do. So you get these big massive queues in the border. People trying to get to the border to get some fuel. Anyway, so population of Benin is it's gone up a lot. When I was there, it was less than 10 million. It is now 11.8 million. And the flag, which I have here for you, I've put some kinks in it because I'm a kinky kind of guy. But essentially, this is the Benin flag. Bit boring, but the Pan-African colours of green and yellow and red, which is nice. But the arrangement is a little bit, I don't know, do you remember the game Quicks? It reminds me of Quicks. Anyway, so red, courage, yellow, wealth, and green is hope or revival. So they're the colours of the flag there. The currency that they use is the West African Cipher. And this is our first trip to West Africa. This is the first time you may have heard of the West African Cipher. The West African Cipher is worth the same as a Central African Cipher, and it's used in about, oh God, I don't know off the top of my head. It's used in about 13, 14 countries in West Africa and Central Africa. It is pegged to the euro. So if the euro goes up, the value of their currency goes up. If the euro goes down, the value of their currency goes down. And it's used by nearly all of the old Francophone countries, the Francophone countries, the countries that were part of the old French Empire, the French colonies of Senegal, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Benin, etc., etc. The countries in the area that are not part of this are the big kind of outlier is Guinea, which was a French colony, but decided that it would rather not sever its ties with France. The original cipher, when it came out, was pegged to the French franc, and that's why it's now pegged to the euro. They said they didn't want anything to do with it. They'd rather be poor and free than rich and enslaved, but rich and in chains. But as things turned out in poor old Guinea, which has turned into a bit of a nasty narco state, thanks to the horrible people who run the state, the people are lovely. Don't get me wrong. The people of Guinea are really lovely. Got me friendly a bunch, but the actual people running the country, not so great. Sierra Leone doesn't use the cipher, and Ghana and Nigeria don't use the cipher because they used to be British colonies, although Cameroon does use the cipher, which was sort of half French, half British. And the only other country that I can think of off the top of my head in the area that doesn't use the cipher, the CFA, which is Central Africa, the Central Franc African or something like that, is Liberia, which was a US colony, kind of. We'll get into Liberia when I get to L's. It's a bit of a strange story. So there you go. The people are the Beninese or Beninois. I like Beninois. Do you like Beninois? I like Beninois. And the languages they have there are French is the main language, obviously, but they also got the Fon language, the Bariba language, the Yoruba language, and the Dendi language spoken. The religions are mostly Catholic, Christian. That's the majority. And then there's a big chunk of people who are Muslim, who are Islamic. And then we have the third biggest religion in the country, which is Vodun or Vodun. Now, you might know Vodun as something else. You might know it as voodoo. Now, you see, voodoo has been Hollywoodized over the years, not helped by things like the movie Live and Let Die, or was it Live and Let Die? Yeah, it was Live and Let Die, wasn't it? Where he went to, that had Baron Samedi in. That was Live and Let Die, yeah. And also things like Angel Heart as well, which probably don't do much for the name of voodoo around the world. But you have to understand that the original voodoo coming from Benin and Togo isn't that much like the voodoo that was exported, mixed with some of the madder things in Catholicism, and emerged as the voodoo that we know and love in Haiti, which is a little bit of an extreme version of voodoo. The voodoo that they practice in Benin and Togo it's a lot more relaxed. It's not more relaxed, to say the least. It's like I say, it's called Vodun in Benin and Togo, and it means the hidden or the mystery. They have one god, a supreme being called Maru, and there's a host of lesser spirits who inhabit the spiritual world along with people's ancestors. And if you talk to a traditional priest or a juju man, which I love the name of, they're consulted. They're consulted for to get the power to communicate with the spirit realm, and this communication is achieved through a ritual, which often involves a gift or a sacrifice in inverted commas of palm wine or gin or food or chicken or eggs. Or a goat. Occasionally there's a goat. There's a goat sacrifice involved, which is something I've seen in West Africa and something I've also seen in Nepal as well. So, you know, each of their own. Anyway, and they have fetishes. Not fetishes like what I have, but fetishes are what are these, they're just like objects. They're an object or a potion, which are imbued with this power of the spirits. And they have fetish markets that sell this stuff. They're basically like voodoo chemists, like voodoo pharmacies, right? And the buyer has a prescription, which has been written by a juju man, and they're required to make a concoction, put all this stuff together, and it can contain stuff like parrot's tail or their cobra head or perfume quite a lot of the time. And the Hollywood's view of voodoo is quite different from the day-to-day reality. However, in the 1970s, the government of Benin decided that they were going to make voodoo illegal for political reasons, which just like, okay, if you say so. But President Kirakau, the guy in charge at the time, he allied himself with the Soviet Union. I'll talk about more of this in the history of the region. And effectively, he thought that voodoo just it didn't flow well. It didn't flow well with rational and socialist thought. So they got rid of it. However, obviously, it survived. You can't stamp out a religion by making it illegal. It's never worked in history. In 1989, it was allowed again after there was a bit of a coup d'etat, and they got rid of Kirakau, the leader, and installed another guy. Actually, no, I think they had an election. We'll come to that in history. But anyway, in 1996, about 7 years later, it became an official state religion. So it's now got the stamp of approval. And there's an awesome voodoo festival. If you are ever in the city of Ouidah, which is near the Togolese border, if you're ever there on the 10th of January any year, they have a big voodoo celebration. There is singing, dancing, drums, and the occasional slaughtered goat. But, you know, it's more about the dancing and the drums and the singing. It's awesome. Please go. Okay, back into the things that people have said. There's a limerick, something struggling to get out there. This is way past my bedtime. Spitzer's here. Pulling a sword out of a watery hole is just as good method as choosing a government than the first past the post system. Some tart in the lake. Duke Vengeance said they asked for them politely. No. They you're talking about the Benin. the Benin bronzers. No, they just took them. If there's a kind-natured 8-year-old boy called Ben living in Benin, will it be benign Ben in Benin benign? When will? Okay, thanks, John. This is gonna keep going. Wait till we get to Togo. Togo. We got to. We used to ship container loads of secondhand clothes into Cottonelle for a guy in Yorkshire, presumably to be reworn. I hope he treated them for scabies, indicator of poverty down in Benin. Yes, Benin is quite an impoverished. It's quite an impoverished place, unfortunately. But a lot of places in West Africa are impoverished, and they need support, not us telling them what to do or saying, hey, this is getting interference with mounting coups d'etats and deposing governments that you don't like and everything like that. No. But giving them free advice and support, and obviously doing nice things like, I don't know, not stealing their stuff. Maybe we could think about not stealing their stuff. That would be grand. Just don't steal their stuff. Okay, so moving swiftly on, I'm going to go to the geography. Benny from Crossroads? What? Farage's demagoguery. One of Brexit Britain's few semi-successful exports, but you have my sympathies. We could use a juju man here in Michigan to ward off evil spirits. Nigel Farage is coming to Michigan. I'm so sorry. But I do know that the capital of Michigan is Lansing. Thank you. If you have a geography quiz, I'm your man. Okay, so moving swiftly on to the geography side of things. Would you like to go to the map? Should we go to the map? Right, there you go. This planet is called Dirt. No, Earth. This is planet Earth. Can you hear me, planet Earth? Yeah, I can. Let's see. Give us a nod. Yeah. Okay, great. So there's South America. There is Antarctica at the bum of the Earth, and there's America there. And as you can see, we've got Florida hanging off the edge of America there, like a big cock. And then over here we have Africa. This takes up a huge amount of the Earth's surface because it is absolutely freaking huge, no matter what the Mercator projection might make you think. Where that little marker is where Benin is. Which, obviously, it's quite small, isn't it? It's not as big as you might have imagined, but it's one of the 54 countries of Africa. And I'm going to zoom in now, and you will be able to see Benin and where it's surrounded by. Obviously, we've got Burkina Faso over here, the land of upright men. We've got Ghana over here and Togo, which is right next to Benin. So Burkina Faso, French. Niger is up here, and there's Niamey, which is the capital of Niger. That was French. Nigeria was a British colony over here, and that's Abuja there, which is the capital of Nigeria. And Togo used to be Togoland, and it was part of the German Empire until the end of World War I, when it was given to the French. That became French. And Ghana used to be British. So there you go. There's Benin, which used to be a French colony here. And there you can see it kind of looks like a club, maybe like a you hold it here, or maybe it looks like a torch. You could hold, like a flaming torch. Maybe it looks like a torch. I don't know. Anyway, so relations with its neighbours are all right, I guess. But most of the people, the vast majority of the 11.8 million people who live in Benin, live down here in the south of the country. So Porto Novo is the capital, but it is not the biggest city. That is this city down here, which is called Cotonou. And something a little bit interesting over here. If we go over here, you can see the Grand Popo area, and you see that little wavy line down there. That's the border. It waves along this little tiny. So basically, they stole all of this coastline. They nicked it from Togo. So they drew the line there, and this particular road is in Benin. And then when it gets to here, it's in Togo. Okay, a bit weird. I know. So Porto Novo, if I go back there, is actually a there you go. Porto Novo. It's actually Portuguese for Newport, like in Wales. And Porto Novo was founded a very, very, very long time ago. So it's kind of one of the oldest parts of the country that we traded with. And it was quite good because ships could get in from the sea into the lake here, and they could get along these little these little strips along here and pull up your boat, so you weren't getting massive waves smashing against the side of your ship, I guess, when you stopped off there. Cotonou is, like I said, it's the biggest city, and it's also the economic centre. It's also the home to the government and the only international airport. So you would expect that to be the capital, but it's not. And over here, we have that's Ouidah over there. That's where I was telling you that they have the big voodoo festival in January each year. Well worth checking out. And over here is Abomey, and Abomey is somewhere where you can go for the Abomey Trail. I think that's is that the Abomey? I think so. That's where you can go for the Abomey Trail, which gives you a brilliant, a little look into Benin's Gothic history, which it has, of the Dahomey civilization. And it's full of palaces and temples and things like that. So if we just quickly go to the satellite, because I know this isn't the most interesting bit, obviously. You're just here for the chat. You're just here for the shit and giggles. All right, so if I look at the actual physical map there, you can see this area here is the Sahara Desert. So that's the Sahara. And then this area here, between the grasslands below, this is the Sahel. So the top of Benin is just touching the Sahel, and the Sahel is pretty much semi-desert, and that's moving, not very fast, but it is moving south every year as a result of global warming, which isn't great. I don't think anyone said global warming was great, but it really, really isn't. But if you look at Benin, you'll see it is quite a green country. In fact, 30% of the land is under agriculture. It's agricultural land, where about 40% of it is under forest. And it is actually one of the last places, well, in the world pretty much, where you can see the lions. Is it the lions? No, the tigers. It's got one of the biggest. There is lions. They've got the largest remaining population of lions in West Africa, because obviously East Africa is really big for safari and stuff, whereas unfortunately for lions, they kind of got hunted to extinction pretty much in West Africa. So there you go. That's just a little bit of a whistle stop tour of Benin there, and I'm just bringing up your lovely chat messages. We've got that's the south coast of Africa. Really? It's not flat. Boo. There was a Janine from Benin. She defo wasn't the queen. She needed the crap, fell in a trap. Her undies became her latrine. Very good. I like that. Graham, what year Benin win the Eurovision Song Contest? It's never won the Eurovision Song Contest, I'm afraid, David, and it's never won the World Cup either, to my knowledge. But where's the McDonald's? I don't think they have a McDonald's. I didn't see a McDonald's when I was there. I don't know if they have one in the country. I honestly, no fast foods, except maybe in Nigeria, maybe in Lake Victoria, maybe in the Victoria bit of Lagos, Victoria Island. I think there's some fast food places there, but otherwise, once I left Morocco, all the way down the west coast of Africa, all the way to Namibia, I didn't see a single KFC or McDonald's or Starbucks anywhere. How do people celebrate New Year? No, just normally, I think. It's just, they have a bit of a party. How many lions? I don't know. Jarton says, I'm sorry, the dog ate my homework. Graham, where is Weatherspoon? There are no Weatherspoons in Benin. Thank you, Benin, for keeping it clean and not allowing any of the what's his name, scumbag spleen. Okay, so moving swiftly on, as I must, because We don't want to be here all night. And it's already past past. Oh my God. So I'm just going to give you as quick as I can, a rundown of the history of Benin. So, more than 350 years ago, the area that's now known as Benin was split into numerous principalities. Around 1625, one leader had an argument with his brother about the right to succession, one of the chiefs, and he ended up settled in Abomey. And he conquered the neighboring kingdom of the Dan, as in Desperate Dan, and which became known as Dahomey, which means in Dan's belly. And then years later, the French colonizers kind of shortened it to Dahomey. So it should be Dahomey, like my homies. Each king pledged of this new place of Dahomey pledged to leave his successor more land than he inherited. This pledge was kept by waging war with his neighbours, and particularly the Yoruba of Nigeria. Oh, hang on, coughing fit. Yeah, take two. Particularly the the Yoruba of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Portuguese and other European powers started establishing trading posts along the coast, most notably in Porto Novo, which I've just mentioned, and Ouidah, which I've also just mentioned. So they're good places to know if you want to know about Benin. Anyway, the forts of the Portuguese, the French, the English, and the Dutch can still be seen in Ouidah. If you go to Ouidah, you can still see the old forts that were built over the years. The Dahomean kings became rich by selling slaves. And they traded these slaves for guns. They bought guns with their money. And with the guns, they went and declared war on their neighbours and took more prisoners of war and had more slaves to sell. It was a vicious circle. So they got more slaves, more land. For more than a century, an average of 10,000 African slaves were shipped from Dahomey to the Americas, primarily Brazil and the Caribbean, and particularly Haiti, hence taking the voodoo with them. And at the time, southern Dahomey was dubbed the Slave Coast. Not great. By about 1750, the Kingdom of Dahomey was earning an estimated £250,000 a year by selling Africans to European slave traders. That equates to like billions today, in today's money. The last ship to transport slaves left the present day Benin in, this is gonna shock you, I hope. It was 1885, apparently. So 80 years after Britain abolished slavery, nearly 70 years after the British abolished slavery in the British Empire in the 1830s, and a good 40 years after the end of the American Civil War. Yeah, bit worrying. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong date there, but it was 1885. Anyway, in 1892, as part of the scramble for Africa, which we discussed when we were talking about Belgium, France took over the Kingdom of Dahomey, and it was made a protectorate 2 years later. Then, in 1904, it became a fully fledged French colony. Easy for you to say. And it became known as French Dahomey. And it became part of French West Africa for 70 years, pretty much. Less than that. 55 years, 56 years. Whereas France's West Africa endeavours did last for 70 years all in. The French did some okay things, I guess. They brought up the level of education, although I would like to stress that I think that the literacy levels in today's Benin is around 33% of the population. So they didn't do that great. But they did some changes to the government, and all in all, Benin had an easier handover to independence than other countries in the region, notably places like Nigeria and especially Algeria, which France decided to cling on to like a lunatic, even though everything was saying, France, you should probably pull out of Algeria. See my video on Algeria for more details on that. Then we've got, what have we got here? We've got, is there a home and bargain? No, there's not a home and bargain. No KFC, all the chickens have been sacrificed. Indeed. There's good food, though. They do have fried chicken there, so, you know. When I was there, I ate quite a lot of sort of meat at the side of the road. So you just sort of order your meat, and they just cook it in like a little barbecue. So you have like a little grill on some coals, and they cook your meat there and then they wipe off the flies off a baguette, and then they put the meat in the baguette, and they pull the skewer out, and then they go, there you go, there's your meat. And it's spicy and nice. It probably gives you dysentery, but I was all right. Anyway, so the country under French rule, its intellectual nature led to the French nickname of the West African Latin Quarter, which is nice. Anyway, better things happened in the future. August 1960, Dahomey became independent. And Hubert Maga, as in Make America Great Again, became the first president of independent Dahomey. And almost immediately, the other French colonies started sending the Dahomians who lived there back to Dahomey. So it was like a free sort of travel area, and then suddenly everyone decided it shouldn't be a free travel area anymore, and everyone had to go back to where they came from, because that makes sense. Put some parallels there, aren't there? With what's happening in the UK at the moment. Anyway, almost, so not long after, things started going down the drain a little bit politically. And in 1963, soldiers in neighbouring Togo staged a coup in Togo, and the military in Benin went, oh, that looks like a good thing to do. Let's do that. And so they did a coup. They did a coup. And then during the next decade, from 1963 onwards, there were 4 more military coups. There were 9 changes of government, and there were 5 changes of the constitution. Finally, in 1972, a group of officers led by Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Kivikau seized power in a coup. Another coup that initiated almost 2 decades of military dictatorship. The country took a strong turn to the left and allied itself with the Soviet Union and China and North Korea, all the best countries. And Kivikau, he changed the country's flag, so I think it became all green with just like a star in the corner, and renamed the country Benin. Take 2. So yeah, he changed the country's flag in 1975 and renamed the country Benin after the Bight of Benin, which is the body of water to the south of what is Benin. So it wasn't named after the old kingdom of Benin. That's separate. That was never there. But he felt that Dahomey only covered the south of the country, and then you had all of this area to the north of the country that wasn't covered by the kingdom of. It was never covered by the kingdom of Dahomey. It was only added to Dahomey by the French. So historically, the people who lived there, the indigenous people who lived there, felt a bit aggrieved. It would be like suddenly the whole country of England gets renamed London. The people who were like, hang on, what? We're not Londoners. But no, you are now. You can see the argument. And I think that Kivikau actually came from the north of the country. So that sort of explains his thinking on that. But yeah, so it changed from Dahomey to Benin. Schools were required to teach Marxism, obviously, because, allying itself with the Soviet Union comes with that. Kalashnikovs became the new lollipops. Collective farming came in, state enterprises, central trade union, and how can I put it, a more militant spirit in the army. However, this revolution, obviously, as all revolutions, was more rhetoric than reality, and the economy fell into an absolute shambles, and there was inflation, high unemployment, and soon people tired of being West Africa's answer to Eastern Europe. And also ethnic tensions between this president, who was from the north of the country, and the Yoruba population in the south. It's boiled over. And there were 6 coup attempts in 1 year alone. In the late 1980s, workers and students went on strike. And in December 1989, a condition of continued French support, basically Curacao needed to ditch the old Marxism and hold a conference to draft a new constitution. However, the 488 delegates at this conference engineered a coup and relegated Curacao to being merely the head of the army, but he wasn't president anymore. And they formed a new cabinet, filled with the people who weren't happy with the way that Curacao was running the country. So yeah, the dissidents, they blamed the government for bankrupting the country, corruption, human rights abuses, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so a couple of years later, in March 1991, they held their first free multi-party elections. And I've got to emphasize this, Benin was the very first African country to transition from a dictatorship to a democratic system. And although it wasn't perfect by any means, but it did bring in a pluralistic political system. And it was the first. And that I think Benin deserves a bit of a tip of the hat for that. In March 1991, a guy called, I think it's Nicephore. It's a great name, that, isn't it? Nicephore. Nicephore Soglo, as in that so glows, swept into power. However, you see, the country was in a bit of a mess, to put it mildly, when it came to the economic situation. And so he did what all stupid leaders do and introduced austerity. When are we gonna learn? Anyway, so austerity went down like a bucket of cold sick, as it always does. And following the 1994 revaluation or devaluation of the CFA, he came under fire for both his autocratic methods of ruling and also massive amounts of nepotism, of giving family members important roles in the government. Anyway, weirdly enough, Curacao, the guy who had ran the country as a dictatorship for the best part of 2 decades, was re-elected in 1996 to be president of the country. And he stayed in charge. He won the 2001 election. He stayed in charge until 2006, when the constitution barred him from standing from office ever again for president, because it was only a 2-term president, which is a lot of constitutions. Ape the American Constitution on that, because they don't want people to be in charge for 33 years, which is how long Curacao was in charge of the country in the end. Anyway, so 2006, we emerged with a new leader called Yayi Boni. He was the former head of a West African Development Bank, and he basically continued Curacao's changes. Like they'd moved away from Soviet Union, although they still have cordial relations with Russia, but more likely to be talking to France and the USA about things. Benin became one of the most stable and responsible democracies in the ECOWAS region. That's the West African region. That's been the case since then. I mean, 2016, there was a new president took over, Patrice Talon, and he is still president to today. So yeah, I mean, like I say, it's a country that has got a little bit of a dark past, but oh my God, in comparison with other places, I think it kind of gets a little bit of a let. But one of the things that's kind of frustrating is the way that until the 1890s, a lot of the Western powers traded with African nations and just had these trading posts set up, and they until the 1880s, I should say, and they were there to just trade with the people who lived there. But then in the mid 1880s, they had this big conference in Berlin, I think, and that started the scramble for Africa. And it was this idea that they had to colonize Africa, quick colonize Africa, because they didn't want to trade anymore. The European nations didn't want to trade anymore. They just wanted to fucking steal as much as they could get. They wanted to fill their boots with all of these countries' gold, silver, diamonds, coltan, copper, cotton, whatever they could get their hands on, rubber. And but the really horrible thing is the fact that they did this after the slave trade. So the slave trade had already died off about this, before then, and then suddenly this new horror coming from Europe came in. This era of colonization, and that the justification for it was this Victorian Christian kind of patronizing vision of Africans as being somehow less civilized. These people are savages, they would say. But then you look at the Benin bronzes and you say, hang on, what? These were established kingdoms, established for hundreds of years, with art and culture and music and dance and all this stuff that had been built up over centuries. And we said, no, none of that exists. None of that. Don't worry about that. We're going to go over there and we're going to civilize you. Like how patronizing, and all of today, the problems that Africa faces today, so many of them have been made so much worse than they should have been because of Europeans going over there with a biro and drawing on a map and saying, this is mine, this is yours, here's a nice straight line here, you can have that part, we'll have this part. That's disgraceful chapter in European history, as disgraceful as World War I and World War II. It's just, a shitty time that Europe decided to just be horrible to everyone, unfortunately. And, it's not like it was just Belgium. It wasn't. The British were there all over the place. And yeah, I know that some certain colonizers treated people better, but none of them should have been there. None of them should have been there. And if someone from Dahomey had turned up on a warship and taken over Cornwall, how would people feel about that in the UK? Would they be like, oh yeah, that's cool? No. It would be horrific. It would be so demoralizing to see these people coming from the other side of the planet and taking our land, taking our stuff without asking. And if you dare complain about it, they'll kill you. Obviously, they didn't do that to us, but we did it to them. So when people say, oh, you shouldn't learn history, you don't want to know about the slave trade. Leave that statue up of that slave trader, because otherwise people won't know what a great man he was. You've lost me. You've lost me. And I just have to pull rank at that point, I think, when I say, look, I've got a degree in history and I've travelled to every country in the world without flying. So, I'm sorry, but I outrank you. Pull down the statues. Do not celebrate the past. Learn from it. And learn from it. Like, if you want to know about history, study it. Don't just whinge about people pulling down statues. Anyway, so, Jeremy is saying, where are we? He was replying to someone there. Tim Wilson says, I was there in 2015. Sounds Trumpian. Tarzan used to swing to the left. I could tell because the loincloth was a little bit tight. Tarzan was a swinger, talking rubbish here to avoid putting QT on subtitles. Please don't watch Question Time. It's very, very bad. Let's say Jeremy Kyle of politics. These streams are actually interesting. My knowledge of other countries is pretty crap. Duke, before I travelled to a lot of these places, I knew sod all about them. And it wasn't until I actually went to these places and saw them for myself that they kind of became real. Well, obviously, they were real places. But when I read a book about Mars, or when I read a book about Middle Earth or Westeros or something, a fictional place, that's as far as away as these places were in Africa to me before I actually went and saw them and experienced them and spent some time there. So I get that. I get that. Before I went backpacking back in 2000. I remember prepping to go backpacking back in 2001. And I was looking at all the places that I wanted to visit in the Indian subcontinent, in Southeast Asia, in Australia, New Zealand, and South America. And I remember being a bit surprised to find that Brunei was in Southeast Asia, was on the island of Borneo. I didn't know. I thought Brunei was in South America. True story. And I had no clue that Singapore was an island. It was a little city-state. I just didn't know. I was like, where should I fly? Let's go to Singapore. Got the map out and I went, oh, Singapore's like a little island. I didn't know that. So yeah, there's a lot to learn. But yeah, we're talking about my experiences going to Benin. First of all, no visa required. So well done, Benin. I love you. Thank you for not making me get a goddamn visa. So I just crossed the border from Togo. Togo, no visa required. I love you, Togo. Côte d'Ivoire, not so much. I did have to get my my visa for Côte d'Ivoire. Catherine pointed out earlier, because I was just flicking through my West Africa book, and here I have my appointment card to get my visa for Côte d'Ivoire, which I think I picked up in Liberia from basically the ambassador's house. I got it. I think he did it for me on his kitchen table. It's got my passport number on the back there and the date and 2 p.m. So I had to turn up with my £5, £5 to get my Côte d'Ivoire visa. So any country that you don't need a visa for always gets extra marks in my book. Burkina Faso, you don't need a visa for there either. At the time, I did need a visa for Niger and Nigeria. And the Nigeria one was pretty difficult. It was one that I don't think I could have got in Benin at the time. I had to get it in London. So yeah, that was good. Traveling around, it was the same sort of experience that I had in other countries in West Africa, that it was a set plus taxi a lot of the way, where I was just crammed into a taxi. And at the time, Lonely Planet had sent a cameraman, Rocco Fasano, who was traveling with me. I think we did rock, paper, scissors for who would get the front seat. Actually, Rocco, I remember Rocco paid double so he could have the front seat to himself. But then he let me sleep. He let me have it for a little bit of the journey because he's just a top bloke like that. But normally 2 people would sit in the passenger seat. But yeah, he paid extra so both of us could get that. We went up to the north of the country, and I left Rocco at the border, and I ploughed on into Burkina Faso and into Niger, just over the border. Then I came back through Burkina Faso and then back into Benin. And then we travelled down to Cotonou, and where are we? Cotonou, sorry. Travelled back down to Cotonou, and we got in at like 5 a.m, and we were staying at a place called Hotel Concorde. So it was L'Hotel Concorde, like the Concorde, like, you know, like the plane. And we got in 5, and a lot of the transport in Benin is motorbike taxis. So there's motorbikes everywhere. In fact, I took a motorbike over the border, took a motorbike back. I was on a minibus, and I went to get stamped back into Benin. And while I was getting stamped in, the minibus left without me. And I'd already paid. I had paid to take me over the border, and it left me without me. And then I had to take a motorbike to the other border point, because there's a big chunk of no man's land in the place where I crossed the border, and you have to get from one to the other. There's a few kilometers between the border posts. There's a little there's a weird little triangle of no man's land, which is a bit odd. But yeah, and then, like I say, we got back down to Cotonou with in a set plus taxi, so we all squished in, get in at 5 a.m. And in the morning, I was leaving to travel to Nigeria. And so I wanted to just have like 1 hour's kip. I was absolutely knackered. And we get out the set plus, and we ask the local guys on the motorbikes if they can take us to Hotel Concorde. And they go, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they drive us to the other side of freaking town. And they get there. And it's a hotel. It's not called Hotel Concord. And we're like, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. And all our stuff was actually at the hotel. We'd left it there the first time we had been before I set off to go to Burkina Faso. And we're like, it's like 5:30 in the morning. And we're going, Concord. Concord. And I'm writing it down, but I realised that a lot of people in Benin are illiterate, so I didn't know if they could read what I was writing, but I was saying Concord. I didn't know any better way of saying it. Hotel, l'hotel Concord. And then one of the guys, because it wasn't just the guy whose bike that I was on. Also, Rocco had a bike, and then another like 2 bikes just came with us for the ride. I don't know, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, get on the bike." And they're razzing around corners, and they nearly crash, and there was a roundabout, and Rocco nearly got taken out by a car, and eventually, about 20 minutes later, we arrived at a place called Concord Multiplex Cinema. And by now it was about 5:45 in the morning. And I'm like, why would we want to be coming to the cinema at 6:00 in the morning? The hotel, take us to the hotel. And then they go, okay, yeah, get on the back. So another 20 minutes. Finally we arrive at the hotel after 6:00 in the morning, after driving around for about an hour on the back of these little motorbikes. And it turns out that the hotel that we wanted, it was over the road from where we'd been dropped off by the set plus. Anyway, so I did manage to get 2 hours sleep though, so that's good. And I left all my stuff with Rocco before I went to Nigeria, because I was concerned about crime and things in Nigeria. As it turned out, it was fine. But he took my main backpack, and he took all my equipment apart from my camera, and I just took my camera and a charger. I think he took my laptop as well, and he flew over to Cameroon to meet me, and I made my way through Nigeria along the Mad Max highway that runs between Lagos and Calabar in the north. The southeast of the country. Jeremy Goff, it's French speaking. It is. Adam says, after reading your book, the amount of times you got messed around with buses and taxis, I'm amazed you didn't get separated from your backpack. Well, I always travelled with my backpack. I never liked putting my backpack underneath or on top of a bus. I would always try and have it at the bottom, between my legs. But yeah, I managed to keep it, which is good. Jeremy Goff, the likes to watching ratio is low, folks. Don't forget to like. Okay, if you'd like to give me a like, please do. It would be nice of you. I would like that a lot. Like. Go on, like it. So Edification Party says, when I visited South Africa, Cape Town in 2017, the people were really friendly and welcoming. Some of the poverty I witnessed was like nothing I'd ever seen before. Humbling experience. Yeah. That's what I found all over Africa, and especially in West Africa, where the poverty is the greatest, arguably in the whole region, the whole continent. Sorry, the people were really lovely. The people didn't have much, but they were happy to share it with you, and because I think I liked West Africa, even though it was a bit of a hard slog, and obviously I was thrown in jail a couple of times. But I think that the fact that when I met people and they helped me out, whatever, there was never or very rarely an expectation that they would get money for helping me out. Whereas in East Africa, where there's a lot more tourists, in Tanzania, Kenya, you tended to get more sort of touts and more people who were just trying to take money off you for nothing. Nigeria was a little bit problematic in that regard, but I was never tapped for anything. The people who would do that would be the cops. So the police were a bloody nightmare pretty much everywhere. Although, from what I remember in Benin, I don't think I got tapped for any bribes in Benin. Whereas once I got across the border into Nigeria, from the get-go, it was just bribery country. But yeah, some of the other countries that I went through in West Africa, the people were lovely, the authorities were problematic, and that's really sad. It's really sad. And people say to me, "Oh, Graham, don't have a go at these police. You know, they don't get paid." And I'm like, damn right, they don't get paid. They don't do anything. They just stand at the side of the road and demand money off everyone going past at gunpoint. It's literally daylight robbery. So, yeah, no, they're not out solving crimes. They're not out, like, you know, righting wrongs or putting criminals away. They're standing at the side of the road taking money off people. Inconsequential. Last time I tried French, I was at school about 40 years ago. I forgot what sex the language was. There's always the Babel fish if you get stuck. Jeremy says, no Belgian Congo nightmares tonight. No, thank God. Phil says, I don't want to generalize because I've never been to Benin, but in my other half's country, Dominican Republic, people with almost nothing, but they offer you half and are more neighbourly. Yeah. Graham, I would like to, what is this? Is it an hour? What? Quelle heure? I know, Graham, I would like to know what time it is in Benin. Okay. What time is it in Benin? Time in Benin. I mean, it's 11:04. It's GMT +1. It's pretty much, if you draw a line straight down from 0 degrees, the Greenwich Meridian, it does pretty much go through Benin. So yeah, it's the same time as it is now. But good question, thank you. I should talk about that more, time zones, because I always find time zones quite fascinating, the way they're set up around the world, and also the fact that they're all hours forward or back from Britain, which is, do Britain not have enough goodies? Do they have to just, that's kind of cool. That's kind of like, oh, wow, yeah, we should be proud of that. But no, we're not. We're more proud of our racism for some reason these days. Yeah. So, okay, we are up to Walter saying night all, jumping the gun there a little bit. Yeah, I'm just going to have a quick look at my patrons. There they are. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me. I hope we learned something about Benin tonight. I know it felt like a shorter show, although I don't think I came online until about 10 minutes too late. But Benin is a little country and it's got a lot to offer. It's a really fun place to go. Alex Morgan, £10 super chat. Thank you very much. Graham, another good stream, a deep dive. After a deep dive, I probably realised the first video of yours I saw was the road trip to the Serbia Exit Festival. Bet you can't wait to travel again. Oh my God, man, I am going out my mind not being able to travel. Although, this is mad. Okay, so I got a message from a guy who used to work for the EU. And he says, do you remember me? I was the representative of the EU that spoke to you when you were in jail in Cape Verde. And I was like, oh my God, really? And he's like, yeah. So basically, he's got in touch with me about doing stuff for the Pro-EU stuff that I'm working on, like the Europe Works website, which we're hoping is a Wikipedia page, a wiki site that allows you to put anything you want about the good stuff that Europe does. So it's all positive stuff that the EU have done in one easy to access place, because at the moment there's all this information all over the internet held by different groups, and we just want to be able to link to those bits of information, sure, but just have them all in one easily accessible and navigable place. So he's going to be helping me out with that. I'm having a meeting with him tomorrow, and he saw me doing the Road to Rejoin meeting last night. So he got in touch with me. He's like, oh, Graham, yeah, I spoke to you when you were in jail. I was like, oh my God. Small world. Anyway, so Patrick Baker says, we had a French guy at work. He was listening to some of the African guys talk. He said he could almost understand what they were saying. They've taken a language and made it their own. Yeah, that happened to me, Patrick. When I was chatting with, I was talking to a French guy in Egypt. And I was trying to speak French, and he was like, you don't speak French, you don't speak French. And I'm like, I know I don't speak French, I'm just trying. He goes, no, you speak African French. And apparently some of the pronunciations of French words I had taken from the way I'd heard them in Africa, and it's different. It's different from African, from French the French that they speak in France. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Merci beaucoup for my nice response, says David. What is the typical cuisine? What's the typical food in Benin for le petit déjeuner, breakfast? Breakfast food over there. What did I have? I think it was meat. I think it was meat on a stick, to be honest with you. But a lot of places that I stayed, because I was often staying with local people. But a lot of the time when I stayed in like a B&B or a guest house or something, the breakfast would invariably consist of toast, a boiled egg, and some apricot jam. And some bloody yellow label Lipton tea, which I had a moan about on Twitter today about Lipton's yellow label tea, because it's so weak. It's insanely weak. I suppose you could drink it without milk, but it's so weak that if you put milk in it, it just turns into hot milk. It's horrible. It's absolutely hot. So hot milk water. But yeah, so I was always, when I was traveling, I was like, oh, sorry, just give me a coffee. In fact, one time I was in Lebanon, and I went into I was with a big gang of Polish people who were traveling through Lebanon, and we were in Beirut together, and we went to a coffee place, and they have all the different coffees, Americano and cappuccino and latte and stuff, and they had tea, and me being an idiot, I thought, I don't want a coffee, I want a cup of tea. So I was like, can I have thé au lait, tea with milk? And what I got was a glass, a beaker, like a glass of warm milk with a Lipton's yellow label tea bag next to it, and I was just like, what the hell is this? Worst cup of tea I've ever had. Right, much mosquitoes? No, I didn't encounter that many mosquitoes in Benin, not that I remember. But I've got blood type A, rhesus positive, and I don't think that mosquitoes bite me as much as they do other people. It's a particular blood type that they just don't really go for that much. So I didn't have a problem with mosquitoes too much, but there are mosquitoes there, I'm pretty sure. I remember seeing a lot of mosquitoes when I was in Gabon. But then I did stay in the jungle with a Briti tribe in Gabon. So that was quite exciting. I'll tell you all about it when I get to G for Gabon. Okay, so, what Dina? This para Dina? What's Dina? Dina's money, isn't it? Dina? No, it's a different spelling. I don't know what that means. Sorry, David. I'll thank you for trying to improve my French and Spanish translation skills. But y para sina dina. Don't know. Squeeze your bag good with Lipton's, says Phil. Yes. Couldn't agree more. Okay, so I will return tomorrow with another episode of Hughes Round at 1 p.m. I'd love you to join me for that. Obviously, you can also head over to the Discord server after this chat if you like. Wayne has just woken up saying, oi, oi. All right, Wayne, how you doing, mate? You've just got here for the end. Next week, I will be returning with another episode of Hughes of the World, and we will be traveling to... What's next? Benin. Bhutan! We're going to Bhutan! Which is one of my favourite flags in the world, and also one of the most interesting countries in the world. It's a little tiny hermit kingdom in the Himalayas that put happiness as the most important metric to measure how successful their country is doing. Which is something I think we should all adopt. Right, so thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for Wayne for finishing the bin and coming over just to see the end. Also, Betty Biscuit. Good night, everyone. Pineapple Boy, Bhutan going up in the world. Indeed, we are. Benin. Okay, thank you very much for joining me. And until next time, fair winds and following seas, traveller. I'd like to say a big, big thank you to all of my patrons.